NFL DFS, FanDuel, DraftKings, even fantasy football. Week 8 slate analysis. I'm your host, Moose, at CFB underscore Moose on Twitter. I'm here from Occupy Fantasy, OccupyFantasy.com, at Occupy Fantasy on Twitter. Alongside co-founder, CEO, got Brian in the chat at Brian Jester FF on Twitter. What is going up, man?
What's up, Moose? Nice little Bengals beam you got going on. Are they going to get their first win, you think, tomorrow?
There's zero chance. Literally the only reason why I have this is, um, so if you don't know, I have an ear infection. It's in both
Yeah.
ears, and so I need some like sort of padding to put over my ears. So I have this beanie.
Oh, nice. Is it working?
Yeah, actually working pretty good.
How are the ears feeling?
They they're not good. I will say that.
All right, we'll run through this pretty quickly then. That way you're not suffering here
Was
for
it?
hours.
It's fine right now, doing it now, but we're going to be here. It's about 4:45. Um, talking about DraftKings, as I said before, DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, Game Stacks, all that other kind of stuff. If you have questions, definitely go ahead and ask them in the chat. Brian, while I'm getting some things set up here, do you want to tell people how they can get their question answered today?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of different ways. If this is your very first time watching this, whether it's live on Twitch, you can just jump in the chat, ask questions. If it's your first time, we'll certainly answer any first time questions. If you've been around for a while, you kind of know how this works. And you can donate some bits to us, which we appreciate. Get any questions answered. Be a Twitch subscriber. Any and all questions will be answered. And Twitch subscribers also get access to our Discord channel, where members can talk with each other about DFS and lineups and strategies and whatnot. You can also just read the daily plug, occupyfantasy.com, use the Occupy model. Lots of ways to get your questions answered. If you're watching this replay on YouTube, it'll be up roughly 24 hours before the game starts. Just leave a comment below, and we'll get back to it and answer it for you.
Absolutely, yeah. Always here to help out people. That's what we like to do here in Occupy. We got some people in the chat here. We got Bismo, who wants to know if I'm a Bengals fan. Yeah, I am. A long, diehard Bengals fan, and it's been really bad. Um, and I got the Prince 803, who's a subscriber. He's a Twitch Prime subscriber. Said, "What's up, guys? What's up to Prince?" Real quick, for those who don't know, if you have Amazon Prime, Twitch allows you to do one free subscription per month. If you want to go ahead and support us through Amazon Prime that way, no charge to you, and you still get your questions answered. It's a really, really good, cool way. I like what they got going on there.
Yes, very true.
Yep. And right in the swing of things, we got Jake, who is a VIP member. Says, "Yo, can we ever get a Thursday night game where both quarterbacks play the whole game, or is that too much to ask?"
Yeah.
I've always said, and I've always gotten good responses from other industry people when I've recommended this. Is schedule comes out like Vegas or like bookmakers in general, they already know weeks in advance what the spreads are going to be. They should just flex high total, close spread games on those prime times on the Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, just so we're not dealing with bullshit like we are every week.
Yeah, they do that on Sunday nights for sure. They really put good Sunday night matchups out. Monday nights, sometimes Thursday, they just give zero shits about it. So, yeah, you see a lot of people say Thursday night football sucks being on Thursdays. No, it's just a regular game.
Yeah.
Like there are games like that every Sunday. It's just what happens. It's on prime time. It's an island. Everyone's watching it. So, yeah, the only way they can get better is if we put better teams on Thursday night.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll go ahead and jump right into things. What you see here is our daily plug available at occupyfantasy.com, as you see up on the top of the screen. Full daily plug and Occupy model available as low as $2 a week. That gives you access to all sports that we offer: MLB, NHL, college football, NBA, NFL. Absolutely crushing it. This daily plug is written by our NFL and MLB contributor Chris Rooney. Excellent, excellent job. If you guys want to go ahead and follow him on Twitter at CDR02989. I know he shows up in a lot of these Twitch streams. Chris, if you're here, just to say what's up so people can know that you're there, and then get your Twitter handle. He goes through really in depth on how to tackle this slate. Game stacks, which is behind the paywall, or in front of the paywall, which is what we'll show here.
Every time moves.
literally every time. And then he's got best plays by positions, a whole bunch of stuff. But what really, really takes it over the edge, in my opinion, is it says, hey, what kind of DFS player are you? Are you a high risk player? Are you a low risk player? Are you kind of in the middle? What are your goals? And then he tells you how to tackle that slate, what type of contest to play, how much of your bankroll you should put out there. And it changes from slate to slate because not every slate is the same. So Chris does an excellent job doing that. Definitely go ahead and check that out, guys. It's really, really resourceful.
Yeah, and Chris has jumped into the chat and said that the cover boy is generally his favorite player on the slate for what it's worth, and the cover boy has scored like 30 fantasy points per game.
Yeah.
So with DeAndre Hopkins on the cover this week, I think it means we should probably get him into our lineups.
Yeah, dude. That cover boy narrative from Chris has just been absolutely going this season.
It really has. And I see you have the game stacks up on the screen, so maybe we should jump into this. I think the biggest question on the entire slate is that Atlanta Seattle game.
Mm-hmm.
So just a quick recap of what has happened throughout the week, what's going on now. The game opened as a 53-point total. Matt Ryan left last week's game with a high ankle sprain. The plan all week was to aggressively rehab his ankle, test him out on Friday, and then see if he could go. That happened. Matt Ryan practiced on Friday, somewhat limited basis, and basically the team said, we're going to see how his ankle responds overnight, and if he cannot go, we're going to activate Danny Etling, preseason hero from the practice squad, and he'll back up Matt Schaub. Well, about noon today, Danny Etling was activated from the practice squad, which indicates that Matt Ryan's ankle did not respond as they had hoped, and looks like a 99% chance that Matt Ryan will be out. So my question to you is now we have Matt Schaub starting, and I was watching this total all day because I figured sharp bettors would already have this Danny Etling information, and figured that the line would move pretty generously because I guess I don't know. I guess I don't know what the expectation was when the lines opened. Was the expectation that Matt Ryan was going to play, or was it that Matt Schaub was going to play? Because it held steady pretty much the entire week and all the way through today. So about 20 minutes ago, when the total dropped on Bookmaker, which is one of the sharpest books that has the line up, from 53 down to 51.5. So I want to hear your thoughts on this whole situation.
Yeah, I mean, normally, anytime you see a huge move like that, especially at Bookmaker, and so for those who don't know, from my understanding, Bookmaker and Chris kind of run this outfit where they're not scared to take large bets. They're not scared to take winners. They take like $20,000+ bets on NFL. They're some of the sharpest guys in the offshore industry. So if you see a move from them, pretty damn significant, especially on a total NFL total over a point. That indicates that they probably got that line wrong, or some people got down a lot of money before they changed it.
I guess so. And actually, as I think Bismo in the chat just pointed out, Matt Ryan has officially been ruled out literally like 2 minutes ago. Adam Schefter just tweeted. So confirms the inevitable. So now we have Matt Schaub starting, and I'm curious to see whenever. So actually, Pinnacle just posted a line list for the first time all week. They've literally been off the board at Pinnacle since Sunday night, and it is now 7.5 minus 110.
Okay.
And the total is 51. And if you have any type of odds screen, you'll see that it's lighting up right now as all the other books scramble to match what Pinnacle has done. Every other, sharpish book has dropped the total down to 51.5, 51. And the spread was about 7. And now every place has moved it to 7.5, even 8 in some spots. So really surprising that it took this long to see effects in the betting markets. But what do you think? Can we have confidence in Schaub? What do you think?
So when in doubt, what I like to do is I like to trust the model. Made a whole damn T-shirt about it. It is a phrase.
Good point.
You look at the model, and where's Schwab? He's literally the bottom quarterback on the entire thing. And so I think you have to ignore that game. It's gonna be a. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just too doubtful on these backup quarterbacks, especially Schwab because he sucks. But I originally was on that game, on the contingent that Matt Ryan was himself because they looked pretty good. But the more I look at that game, the more I have to stay away from it from a DFS side standpoint.
I think you're probably right. Um, yeah, the thing for me is like, okay, Matt Schaub isn't that great.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at, I think it was an article, I know ESPN posted it, maybe Action Network posted something similar as well, where they interviewed different bookmakers and they came up with a point spread value for each quarterback. If a starting quarterback misses a game, how much is he worth to the spread? And I think the consensus for Matt Ryan was 3.5 points before the season started. And I think that makes sense to me here, where
Yeah.
Seattle is 7.5 point favorites on the road. Maybe they would be 4 point favorites if Ryan was healthy, given Atlanta's struggles. But my biggest thing here is that I continue to struggle with. Every week we talk about getting pressure on the opposing quarterback is the biggest way to disrupt the passing game.
Yep.
And for quarterbacks that have clean pockets, they generally have pretty big fantasy games. And Seattle just doesn't get pressure on the quarterback. And they have 11 sacks in the 7 games this season. If you look at more advanced metrics, quarterbacks are getting a clean pocket on 86% of their attempts against Seattle. And if you look at a different metric, ESPN's pass block win rate, Seattle's in the bottom 10 of the league. So I guess my point is, even if they can't get pressure, can Schaub do enough? And maybe, with the model telling us, because the model takes all that into account. It's telling us that that's not. So maybe I do have my answers. I'm talking it out here live.
Yeah, no, and that's that's what I always love about these Saturday streams is because we're not scrambling. I literally say this every week too. We're able to take a sit back, ask these questions, and kind of come to some conclusions, some analysis, stuff like that. And with that being said, we got Festival with some bombs, who cheered. I don't even know how much that is. It's like 100, 100 and
100,
something bits. Let me look at that here.
no, he
100,
took the lead now. Yeah.
114 bits from Festival. So a huge shout out to him, man. I really appreciate that. Takes the number 1 spot. Overtakes Miller Park Drunk. Real quick, Brian, do you want to explain to people how those top 3 cheers work?
Yeah, just really quickly, the first Thursday of every month, the previous month's top cheers will get a percentage of my GPP winnings in the FanDuel Thursday single game big tournament, the million. 1%, half percent, quarter percent for each of the top 3 cheers. I've struggled so far. Ideally, I'll hit the million one of these days, and the cheers will be rewarded.
Yep. And real quick, just going back to some chat, there's some comments we kind of ran through. Jake has a question. With the Breeze news, do you guys think Kamara plays as well? What do you think about that?
Another great question. This is the one I'm most unsure about, and one of the biggest reasons I haven't created my lineups yet. Because if he doesn't go, Latavius Murray is an outstanding value at his price tag as 11.5 point home favorites. We saw him get dominant work last week, usage in the passing game. I tend to think they'll hold him out, and you'll see some people point to them releasing Zach Zenner in the middle of the week, indicating that Kamara may be healthy. But Zenner played 8 snaps last week, fullback Zach Line. Took a lot of the backup running back duties. So that may not be the case. I think with the bye next week and Kamara not being fully healthy, then being massive home favorites, Latavius being a capable backup, I lean towards Kamara sitting and Latavius being a great value. But again, I don't know when we'll actually know that information.
Yeah, that's true. And then Abysmal comes back and says, Kyler Murray is QB8 with 7 touchdowns. Food for thought. Don't ask Brian questions about Arizona because he's extremely biased. But looking more and more into it, I think that this is finally the week. I think this is the week where we take off Arizona. What's your opinion on them?
Yeah, I'm actually not using the mid this week, which means I'll score 40 points. So just a heads up to everyone. I'm not stacking that game. It's certainly on the list, but even Chris, who wrote the plug, doesn't have Arizona New Orleans in his top 4 stacks, as you see listed here. So yeah, I think it's a tougher matchup. Arizona, like Bismo said, they're not scoring a ton of touchdowns. If they are, they're kind of spread out. And I know Chase Evans tilted everyone off the planet last week. So we'll see. I'm much more interested in most of these 3 games that Chris is pointing out.
Yeah. So let's start right into them. The first one that I like, and I think you said that you're pretty heavy on it, is this Oakland and Houston game. I'm stacking this game as well, as Chris points out. The second highest total on the slate at 51.5.
Now the highest.
Yep. Yep. Now the highest. Um, and one thing we always like about Oakland for their defense is they suck at getting pressure on quarterbacks. So least amount of pressure according to the models is 16%. So what's your opinion on this game?
Yeah, that's a big thing for me. We see Deshaun Watson take a lot of sacks, and some of that's to blame the offensive line. Some of that is Deshaun's willingness to hold on to the ball and take shots downfield. But he has time in the pocket. I mean, you gotta like DeAndre Hopkins. You gotta like Kenny Stills in this game with Will Fuller being out. Even Keith Coutee can see some work. This game should shoot out, and this has the biggest total move of the slate too. And when we have total moves like this, I'm trying to pull it up right now. If I can find the damn game.
Let's see.
I know I saw somewhere it's multiple points that it moved up. I believe.
Think you're tripping.
Yeah, because Bookmaker opened it at 48 before Pinnacle did.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was on the 19th, so literally a week ago. Immediately got it up to 50, and it kind of settled at 50 for a little bit. But now it's up to 51 and a half, 52. So if you use that initial line, that 48, which is clearly a mistake, you got bet at 4 points, which is just a massive move.
Yeah, no, I get that, and especially seeing those first initial moves is kind of indicator of where the sharp money and where these syndicates really think the bet should go. It's just not many. There's not going to be casuals betting a week in advance.
Right. I mean, that's definitely true. And so how often? I mean, you and I have read a ton of information about betting syndicates and sharp bettors. How much of those early moves do you think are head fakes? Let's bet the over to get them moving, and late in the week we'll come back with a huge bet on the other side.
So I remember I read this from a podcast about maybe a year or so ago, and again, this is not 100% of the time, but overs and favorites are generally speaking head fakes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So because they know that that the public's always going to bet that, generally speaking, so they want to get out in front of it. So worst case scenario, it goes up. They have middle opportunities. They have ways to hedge their own bets, stuff like that. Now, if you see a sharp play like a point and a half move on an underdog, that's going to be a lot different.
That makes sense because just the general public's going to be betting overs and favorites, so they want to get out ahead if possible.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and Jake here has a question, not about a game that's listed in the games to stack in the daily plug, but another game that could be preferred to stack is that Philly and Buffalo game, asking about the weather. And looking at Kevin Roth, who's a guy we love to look at, a free resource from Roto Grinders, tweets about a lot of good weather related materials for both MLB and NFL. Mm-hmm. And reading his weather report, decent chance of rain in Philly and Buffalo. That's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is 20 miles per hour sustained wind and a little bit of rain. And, that's 20 mile an hour sustained wind, which is above that threshold.
Yeah.
Probably bumps down that game to stack, I would think.
Yeah. Once it hits that 15 plus mile an hour range is when it starts to get a little negative in the model for some positions, some players. So great question there, Jake.
And that total moves has dropped from 42 down to 41.
Wow. Nice. All right. So let's see. So we talked about that, the Oakland-Houston game. The one that, I never really thought about, and then Chris put out the plug and made me think about it. We're going to skip that middle game. Is that Chargers-Chicago game. And even as Chris says, really? Chargers and the Bears? Really? No, and, they rank kind of highly in the model. The only thing that I don't like, and I get super tilted by it, is, this Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler split. I think we can all assume that Eckler at this point in the season is better than Melvin Gordon. I think they're just using Melvin because he's worth a lot of money to them. But, I mean, if they just went full Eckler like they did the first 6 or so weeks, then they'd be a lot better.
I mean, Eckler is dominating pretty much every advanced metric, whether it's Pro Football Focus grade, whether it's yards after contact, whether it's missed tackles, whether it's yards per reception. Like he's dominating Gordon in every facet of the game. Maybe he'll be used more. And he was actually on the field in some receiver sets late in that Tennessee game. And with Keenan Allen being questionable / doubtful, maybe they use more 2 running back sets with Eckler playing out wide. If that's the case, I do like Eckler in this game. And I know most people will be scared off this low total, but the thing you have to like most about here is the concentrated target volume for LA side, and the and a lot of the underperforming wide receivers are in this game. Mike Williams and Anthony Miller in particular.
But it does kind of scare me off there though is as Fesco points out, Nagy's running the playbook. He said, aren't they supposed to run the ball a little bit more this week?
Yeah, they ran the ball 7 times last week after losing by 1,000 points to the Saints, and got a lot of pressure from outsiders, I assume. Same thing happened with the Chiefs when they lost to the Texans. Outsiders were saying they weren't running the ball enough, so they ran the ball a decent amount in that next game. And Nagy said, we're going to run the ball more in this game. We'll see. I think that's detrimental. Also, the Chargers is the biggest mismatch of the week. Their offensive line versus the Bears' defensive front. That could be another reason that this game doesn't end up living up to the stack potential. So just something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah. So and then about that middle game, the Titans and the Buccaneers. Is that a game that you're on?
I'm debating now with Seattle, Atlanta now the picture. I'm for sure on Houston and Oakland. I'm also for sure on the Giants and the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
That game has a really high total. Neither team generates pressure. Both teams have issues in the secondary, injuries, or trades. So I really like stacking that game. But yeah, if you're looking for a third game or another game, this Titans and Buccaneers, especially from a receiver perspective, because you have Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Corey Davis, AJ Brown. Yeah, but both teams are pretty porous against the pass, so I can see why Chris listed this as a game to stack.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And with what was I gonna say? Yeah, and as Chris points out, Tannehill is the 4th highest in the Occupy model for quarterbacks. Makes him
Yeah.
up for value play. You can fit in some nice studs elsewhere if you decide to go with that game.
Yeah, I know Chris was actually talking about using him in his cash game lineup because he is so cheap, especially on DraftKings. Can't really hate it with the Buccaneers' inability to stop the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
Only concern there is Tampa Bay generates literally the most pressure in the league. So we'll see if Tannehill can. And actually Tannehill dealt with that pretty consistently in Miami, where he had 0 offensive linemen on every play.
Mm-hmm.
So he's probably used to having defenders in his face.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, guys. So we went through the stacks there. If you have any questions, definitely go ahead and let us know. We mentioned how to get your questions answered. We'll be here for another 20 minutes or so. See if there's anything else in the chat going on here. No, not really too much. How do you want to take this, Brian? What do you want to talk about next?
All right, so we've talked about the games to stack. Can we look at the model really quickly and just look at some of the biggest total moves and spread moves?
Yeah, of course. So let me go ahead and get this refreshed. And what we're showing here, guys, for those who don't know, it is the Occupy model. OccupyFantasy.com is where you can find it. I'm going to go ahead and filter just for the main slate. And this ranks, in this case, this is quarterbacks. Over 150 different metrics. Use to boil it down into this OF index right here. The higher the better. Obviously, if you scroll down to the key, for quarterbacks, an OF index of at least 60 is considered great. No one fits that criteria this week. If we look here, look at some of the higher team totals. Jared Goff and Russell Wilson, so Rams and Seahawks at 30.25. Both of them have over 1.25 team total move. Getting a lot of spread bets on there as well.
I mean, those 3 elite quarterbacks for sure. Goff, Wilson, Watson moves. I mean, you look at Watson, nearly 3-point team total move. It always comes back to me, the most vivid memory for me when a total moves 3 to 4 points like this Houston game did. Mm-hmm. We'll keep an eye on it tomorrow morning, but the most vivid memory for me was Deshaun Watson's rookie year. They played in Seattle, and that total in that game moved from, I want to say 43 to 48 midweek, like just a massive move. And like every player hit like 10x value in that game. It won people literally millions of dollars. So my ears are always perked up when totals move that much.
Yeah.
And maybe we talk about in the $1 Million Mission every Tuesday that I like to stack 3 games per week, and maybe I do 2 and just double up on this Houston game.
Yeah, I mean, just because you like to try something doesn't mean it's going to happen every slate. If something comes in your face and you say, you know what, this just isn't it, Chief. I can't do it. Um, and Jake makes a comment here. He says, I feel like you have to go Watson and Cash. Um, I don't necessarily know if you have to. He does have a little bit of downside. You do have people, even like Jared Goff, who's higher in the model and cheaper in DraftKings price. Similar ownership, a little bit less, but I think there's maybe about 2, 3 quarterbacks that you really could go in cash here. What do you think?
Yeah, or like Chris said, just pay all the way down because quarterbacks generally don't have those massive ceilings and they all have relatively high floors. So the difference between quarterbacks isn't that great most of the time, especially in cash games.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, you want to have enough salary to pay up at running back and maybe 1 or 2 other positions. So I think the consensus is that try to pay down if you can, but if there's enough value on the slate, like maybe this week, you can certainly pay up.
Yep. And Jake has a comment here, question that says, there's a ton of value on this week, so maybe it's not needed. But what do you guys think of Ginn? He seems overlooked.
You want to pull him up in the model and see where he looks?
Sure.
Yeah, so against Arizona, likely Patrick Peterson shadowing Michael Thomas. And, shout out Mike Clay, who writes for ESPN, former colleague of mine. I actually wrote an article this week detailing all the times that Michael Thomas has been shadowed in his career.
Okay.
And he's actually crushed shadows. There's only been one time where he's underperformed. So we'll see if Patrick Peterson can do it. But either way, it likely opens up more targets for other guys in the Saints passing game.
Mm-hmm.
And, Ginn is pretty low in the model, but it really only takes one play for him to hit value.
Yeah, no, 3,700 on DraftKings, 53 on FanDuel, 13 on Yahoo, which is pretty cheap as well. Um, projected basically 5 targets, but do you think that basically 5% ownership seems kind of high for a wide receiver that basically needs a touchdown to hit that value? A couple good things, and he's that low in the model. I may stay away from him, but if you are stacking that game, I can see you using him if that makes any sense.
Yeah, certainly if you stack it, and if you're not stacking, I think I probably like Josh Hill, the tight end, more at a cheap price against Arizona's defense, and we know is just miserable against tight ends. And whether or not that's predictive or not, we're not 100% clear on.
Mm-hmm.
The model seems to think it is, and even so, Josh Hill with Jared Cook out represents a nice value.
Yep, definitely makes sense. And then Chris comes here in the chat. He says, "You guys want to talk about CMC and Saquon? We usually advocate for paying up for the production, but do we have to this week?" Chris, you're really getting me to go to that running back tab.
Just open it up for the people.
Yep, here we go. And again, guys, while it's loading up, if you like what we do, definitely go ahead and give us that follow button at the top right, that purple heart. You'll get notified of when we go live if you have your settings turned on. If you're watching this replay on YouTube, hit subscribe and the bell notification. If you want to go ahead and cheer bits, you can. If you want to go ahead and subscribe to us here on Twitch, you can. You get access to the Discord server. It's really awesome. We do Q&As. Just overall, really good time in that place too.
Yeah, and I'm trying to do a Q&A every Sunday night before the Sunday night single game slate. And I know Garrett and Tommy, our NBA writers, are doing NBA Q&As throughout the week. So definitely get access to the Discord link. If you have Amazon Prime, it's a free add-on. So
yeah, cool. So we got it up here, and for the running back task, feature for the main slate. The first person that really stands out to me, you look at Chris Carson at 7,000 on DraftKings, over 30% projected ownership, which is just nuts. And then you have someone like Christian McCaffrey, who's the overall number one person, and Saquon's like what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th, which is like the lowest I've seen him in a while. There, I think that is because there's so much value elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean he's 8,900 on DraftKings, which is pretty expensive. You get a slight discount on FanDuel, 8,600, whereas you figure he is $1,000 less than McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you need to pay up because you're going to get Carson in a great matchup, Fournette in a great matchup, some of these value guys in great matchups. Seems insane to think that you don't need to put McCaffrey and Barkley in your low risk lineups. However, I will say at their reduced ownership and at their massive upsides, I mean, they're easy plays in high risk contests.
Yeah. So if real quick, if we sort by projected weighted opportunity, which if you look down in the key, it's a metric developed by Pro Football Focus. Basically combines the rushing attempts and projected targets. You have
Yeah, basically, I
McCaffrey.
mean, basically that it just gives a better indication of fantasy opportunity rather than just targets because targets are worth so much more
Yep.
in fantasy scoring.
Yeah, and if you look at the people who are over 30, who have over 30 projected weighted opportunities, Chris Carson does still stand out. I think he's a great cash play. Pay down for him, you can pay up for somewhere else a little bit there.
Yeah,
Even Latavius Murray at 5,800, 27.7 projected weighted opportunities, really really cheap there. There's there's definitely a lot of ways that you could go, unlike normal. Just even Chase Edmonds is up in that top in the model. Nick Chubb. So yeah, I don't necessarily think you have to go, complete studs wide receivers in low risk this week.
yeah. I don't think you'll have to do it because you can likely by playing a couple of these guys and you'll be able to fit up at least one tight end, maybe pay up it. I mean, pay up it with tight end or pay up it one at receiver too. So yeah, super interesting. Maybe you can pay up for Chris's cover boy DeAndre Hopkins.
Yep, yep. And as Bismo says, I think he's talking about Chris Carson. With that ownership, I might fully fade him and hope he busts for insane leverage. Yeah,
Yeah,
that could be a strategy there. Yeah, absolutely.
because I know Bismo has 30 some millionaire maker tickets or Sunday Million tickets on FanDuel.
Wow.
So yeah, I'd be curious to see how he plays it out. It's a big opportunity for Bismo. Follow the satellite strategy for tomorrow's game. So I know he's nervous making his lineups.
Yeah. And as Jake says in the chat, the Edmonds usage seems off, but maybe it's waiting on official DJ news. Brian, you think that DJ's not playing at all?
Yeah, I mean they can say all they want. Fuck them. They're not telling the truth. David Johnson's questionable. Really, he played one play last week. Didn't practice all week, and they signed two running backs. Come on, right? DJ's not playing. Edmonds is going to get the bulk of the work here. I think the model understands that with his 28 weighted opportunities.
Yep, absolutely. And as Chris ends it, where it says, I love it, guys. That's the path to paying up at quarterback probably if you want to go to get Watson and Hopkins, fellas. Yeah, Watkins, Hopkins, and low risk paired up with a cheaper running back. Got a nice little thing going on right there.
And we've talked about it before, and we definitely talked about it in the ultimate guide. But if you have a cash lineup that ends up looking like that for tomorrow, let's just say you go uh, Watson and you go Hopkins, and maybe you pay up to Waller at tight end, and then maybe, just maybe, not necessarily has to happen, but maybe you have a running back defense combo correlation. Like that has tons of upside as well as a high floor. So you should also be putting that same lineup into quintuple ups, 20 player leagues, maybe even 100 player leagues on FanDuel and DraftKings. Probably not for GPPs and whatnot, but smaller satellites like that has enough upside to score 200 plus points on DraftKings,
Absolutely.
150 plus points on FanDuel. So matching your cash lineup after you make it to your more higher risk contest to add on to your exposure, because as Chris said in the plug, it is a max allocation week. Definitely make that lineup first and see what else you can put into it.
Yep. And again, another thing they talk about, uh, well, it doesn't may not mean much to a lot of people, but as we mentioned, there is the what is it? There's no free roll on DraftKings. There's two free rolls on DraftKings. Literally just put something in there, and you have the ability to make a couple of dollars, which is really tight. Um, Jake has a question: what would guess Murray and Edmonds used to be if Kamara and DJ are ruled out early? Um,
I think it's kind of what you see here. Maybe
yeah,
Murray's increases a bit. I don't know if Edmonds will increase that much more. Um, Maybe slightly, but I think the model's kind of accounted for both already.
yeah,
Maybe they just get slight bumps with official confirmation.
yep. Cool beans. Yep. So another 10 minutes here, guys. Definitely. Let me go ahead and get this retweeted out for you. See if we can get some more people in here. Yep. Go ahead and ask away.
Most of you, we watching the Nats game tonight.
Yeah, I am. I'm glad they kind of lost. Have you been following this mattress Matt guy? Just lay millions of dollars down on the Astros.
Yeah, I remember the initial story, but he only did that because what was his initial promo he offered to his customers?
So he owns a mattress store, and his promo was anybody who buys a mattress at my store gets it for free if the Astros win the World Series. He's done this for a couple years now, and now that they made the World Series, he said he has like a couple $1 million in liability. So he went out to Mississippi where there's legal sports betting, made a couple $1 million wager on I think it's like 1.4 million on Astros to win the World Series to hedge his bets. Now he's just being I don't greedy is probably the wrong word, but just much of a gambler. He's actually just betting just like select games on Houston to win. He's just
Wait, so he, did,
absolutely
he, he, did, he didn't bet the Nets to win to hedge. He just is kind of trying to cover his losses.
yeah, that's what I meant to say. Yeah, covers losses. Yeah.
Oh, right, because if you bet the Nets and Houston won, he would lose everything.
Yep.
Right. Makes
Yep.
sense. My initial thought on this was that like I didn't realize selling mattresses was that lucrative of a business for him to get millions of dollars in liability.
Well, I mean, think about it. It's like if I'm in a situation and someone's like, hey, basically, what a 20% chance I have to pay for a mattress? Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good promo for him. It
Yeah.
clearly led to millions in sales. So
Yeah. Um. Oh,
to Jake's point, though, I think he's talking about ownership, and yeah, ownership will rise in tomorrow morning's update if both those guys are ruled out officially.
Yep. Yep. Very, very curious to see how that ends up turning out.
We're actually going to a watch party tonight, and I found my Houston Astros throwback, and I'm thinking about wearing it, but it's also like way too big, so we'll see.
It's fun. All right. So Lucas is the goat at researching. And guys, he says gallery furniture, which is, apparently is that mattress store, is huge in Houston. Is always packed.
Of course, Lucas knows that.
Yep. But yeah, it was crazy talking about the Nats. Have you been playing any of the World Series? I know you played the game one. You're more a high risk player, so the GPPs aren't necessarily that good. Are you still dabbling in it, or just kind of staying away?
No, and the hashtag How Rich Life. I only played the World Series Game 1 GPP on DraftKings because it was 100K at first. Now it's only 50K, so I'm not playing it.
Nice.
Yeah, sitting this one out.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, easily by far, with these showdown slates is trying to figure out reliever information and closers information. Just because you can fit in, especially in low risk, fit in 1, 2 relievers, allows you to pay up for some good bats and the starting pitchers.
Right. No, that's definitely. I mean, it's actually really frustrating that in cash games the optimal lineup has been really good lately, but people have been getting bailed out by these fucking 8-9 hitters hitting home runs. But I think over the long haul we really found an edge, and especially the Sunday night showdown slates for the 2020 MLB season, I think there's going to be a huge edge for it because people still realize how to play correctly.
Definitely agree with you on that. As Chris points out, there's a lot of satellites for the $100 NFL Millionaire that's coming up on the MLB Showdown slate. Let me go ahead and take a look at this really quick.
Yeah, so that 100. So we just last week was the $10 and the whatever $3,000 millionaire.
Yeah.
This week it's back to the regular $20 millionaire on DraftKings. I think the first weekend in November, if I'm not mistaken, it's a $100 entry millionaire. I've earned a couple of tickets, but yeah, as Chris says, they have these available at pretty affordable buy-in levels for satellites. So bankroll sizes, any bankroll size should be trying to get those tickets if they can.
Yeah. Speaking of tickets, I got a question for you. I have one ticket to the Fantasy Football Millionaire that I'm not really targeting that contest. Just one of the things that happened where I got the ticket, so I am going to be using it tomorrow. I feel like there's enough chaos to go around. How would you handle someone like that where they got just one ticket, maybe a couple tickets, but the contest that they really weren't really planning to get into? How do you play to take it down?
I think just a contest like that it's really tough.
Yeah,
just in general.
of course.
And for you, I think your bankroll is relatively big enough to where a main cash of $30 isn't a dramatic move in your bankroll. So I would just go for bust. Do a super stack like we talk about on Tuesday nights in the $1 Million Mission. And since you're probably doing that by hand, I think you can really tweak it and carefully massage it to get close to that 15% ownership mark. Get a maximum correlation. I think it's a lot easier when you have one ticket as opposed to multiple to really
Yeah.
accomplish what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And so I'm pretty sure I'm going to go with a super stack with um, that Oakland game. So I
Yeah.
think that is probably where I'm going to lean towards. So it should be interesting. Hopefully, when we're back on Tuesday, you'll be reviewing your 150 lineups, and I'll say, hey, I took it down with one lineup.
Dude, yeah. Can you imagine? Like, I've entered like literally like 1,200 lineups this year and have like a negative 90% ROI, and you have a plus +1,000,000% ROI on
Yeah.
one entry.
Yep. That
I'm
would be
sure you'd be
pretty
okay
cool.
with that.
I think I'll be fine. Um, I do want to give a shout out to this contest. I don't necessarily wouldn't recommend playing it, but I do think that this may be an extremely hot take. But I think for DFS to survive the way it is, they need to have more contests like this. They have the Larry Fitzgerald first down fun thing where it's $5 to enter, and top three get autographed Larry Fitzgerald memorabilia. I think they need to start doing more fan type contests to encourage casuals to play. Those are the type of contests that I would really like to do. I know they used to have the fan experiences.
Those are incredible.
Yeah,
Like they need to bring those back. Where literally every couple days in the MLB summer, they would have experiences for different ballparks. And it wasn't even that many people. It was like a 500-person GPP. Where if you got first, they flew you out to a ballpark. You threw the first pitch of the game.
yeah,
So they need to bring that back for sure.
yeah, exactly. Jake, with the question, has Teddy and Ryan? I have Teddy and Ryan in season long league. Who would you take this week? Minshew, Tannehill, Mayfield, or Trubisky?
It's close for me between Minshew and Tannehill. I would probably say Minshew.
Okay, I was gonna say Tannehill, but
It's not so
yeah,
yeah.
both of those are still good options.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, yep.
I agree.
Alrighty, let's see if there's any last questions. If not, Brian, do you want to go ahead and take us out of here?
Yeah, I'll take us out and just a quick recap on all the content that is available for everyone from Occupy Fantasy this week. So the $1,000,000 Mission Week 7 was posted on Wednesday night. It's a lot of 150 max multiple entry analysis. It's replays here on Twitch, replays on our YouTube channel. So subscribe on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. The daily plug that Chris wrote is up on the website, occupyfantasy.com. We'll see through every position, every contest type that you want to play this week. Occupy model that you see on screen is up and running, updated live through the games tomorrow. DFS podcast is out. Season long podcast is always out. I'm not sure if it still helps you this week, this late in the week, but it's out on your favorite podcast app. So be sure to subscribe. If you rate and review and leave a comment, we'll really like that. And tomorrow morning, Chris, our NFL writer, will be doing a Periscope at 11 a.m. Eastern, answering any questions that you have for about half an hour as the actives roll in, whether it's your season long or your DFS lineups. And finally, be sure to subscribe to us on Twitch. Use your Amazon Prime to do it for free. Get access to our Discord channel and talk to us, talk to other people about your DFS lineups.
That was actually pretty good. So, with that being said, I'm Moose alongside Brian here from Occupy Fantasy. Go ahead and if you have any more questions, hit us up on Twitter or the website. And so, peace out. Have a good night, guys.